We're continuing our journey on the AI topic, diving a little bit deeper into the news use case. This was a clip I grabbed from the ShopTalk Show, which is hosted by Chris Coyier and Dave Rupert. You might have heard the name Chris Coyier, especially since he owns one of the apparently very valuable internet properties, CSS Tricks, now owned by Digital Ocean. Sold it off. But he is keeping track on how AI is actually using data sets and scraping them, using them to train the algorithm, and discovered CSS Tricks was in there. Was totally unaware of it, sort of scraping the whole archive in order to use for something else. And they talk about some of the ramifications there and what can be done for content creators online and permissions for AI to scrape their stuff.
Washington Post had a great article about kind of proving what a model was trained on, which seems unbelievable that has to be breaking news. It's like, oh, we figured it out, people. This big company that have released public products trained on public content just straight up didn't tell us what it was trained on, which feels like should be almost like illegal. Like what?
Yeah.
So anyway, they figured it out because they used science and researchers and some cool open source project that unearths it somehow. But they figured out the websites that it was trained on. Now, some of that was juicy because it was like, well, look at this horrible crap it was trained on. Some neo-Nazi site or whatever. Like, wow, really? That
some
made
Nazis in the
super neat. Good job.
Yeah.
But people were vanity searching it. Show like what was my website in there. I was curious, of course, if CSS Tricks was in there because I've used Bard. I even have a little AI, space in Arc that has all the like AI tools on it, so I can click over to one and use it because I'm trying not to be ignorant of how it all works and all that stuff. So Bard is an easy one to bookmark and just use real quick because once you're in, it's just a URL and you can use it. And once in a while, I'll pop over there and type something into it that seems interesting or whatever. And I can type in I wrote this, but I need like a rainbow gradient, and I know what that looks like in CSS. It's just a linear gradient with a bunch of color stops of red, green, blue, whatever. But also like choose nice colors. Like if you just use the named colors, it doesn't turn out as nicely as somebody's nice hand-picked rainbow colors, and it complied nicely. But I'm like, okay, so where'd you get that? Probably Stack Overflow. I don't know what you're scraping, but there's so much code there. I was curious if CodePen would be on the list. It's not.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
So no pens were used in Bard's model. Notably, OpenAI publishes absolutely nothing. OpenAI, Dave, publishes absolutely nothing about what they train their stuff on.
Classic open source maneuver to not publish stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Closed AI, maybe better name.
Yeah, we were joking the other day. It's OpenAI is not actually open. React's not reactive. Yeah.
Oh, I can look up what I was talking about there. So this is about tech naming, right? There's a sort of there's a concept called nominative determinism, where the thing that you're named after it ends up becoming the thing that you do. But in tech, it's kind of the opposite. It's anti-determinism, where the thing you're named after becomes the thing you're not. So GraphQL is not graph. It's not a graph, and it's not a query language. Is what people often say about that. I'm trying to look for. Serverless. They're still servers.
Yep.
And then I had this in 2019. Gatsby themes is not just for themes.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, my favorite new one is Edge Runtime that doesn't run on the edge. Doesn't actually run on like an edge network. No, there's regional edge, which to me is jumbo shrimp.
That counts.
It's like, well, Edge runtime just means small runtime, except when it's Dino, which is a fully fledged runtime, and except when it's AWS Edge, which is just Node. So yeah, it means nothing. But we wanted to. It's getting weird. But OpenAI, yeah, that's a funny one.
Yeah.
Open use.
Okay, so what's the was that the clip or was there more?
No, he goes a little bit deeper. I can keep going.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, but it's trained on a bunch of things that know CSS, right? Was CSS Tricks one of those sources? Yes, it absolutely was. With just millions of tokens or whatever. It was the training data that it pulled from that. Am I absolutely furious about that? Somewhere above mildly displeased. Nobody asked me. Nobody provided me an opt-out. Nobody did nothing.
Right.
Now that is just publicly posted on the internet, so nobody had to ask me to visit my website either. Google didn't ask me if they could scrape my, or, learn from my website in which to build a search engine. And I'm not mad about that. But I'm not mad about it because it helps people find the content. It helps drive traffic to the website, which helped me build a business around that. There was a lot of like helping people do something involved there. And now all of a sudden that math has changed because we're just going to read all your content and provide another product and not send people there and not tell people where it came from. That's like a different math to me. Mm-hmm. Like we want to provide the answer based on your content and not tell people where it came from and not send people there. That's just different.
And you get no credit, basically. Yeah.
Credit, traffic, nothing. I get absolutely nothing out of this.
I looked it up myself, and I gotta wonder, Chris, did they not see the copyright in my footer? Because I update that every year pretty religiously, and I'm surprised they even had the gall to do that,
Right. But there's nuance, of course, because they're not just, you don't type in a search term and it outputs an exact paragraph that Dave Rupert wrote. That's not what happens. It's just training data. It will upload a paragraph that might be highly informed by something it read on daverupert.com, but it's not like plagiarism. They didn't just copy and paste your paragraph.
It's 0.0001% Dave Rupert-ish.
Yeah. And now I'm doing what I don't want the tech news to do, but that's why the Drake thing is interesting too. It's not a copyright violation because it didn't sample anything from a Drake song. It just sounds like one because of the training data.
Yeah, that one has confused me a lot. Well, it doesn't confuse me that like copyright law wouldn't cover it because of course it doesn't. But it feels like there is a big gap in that where you can train a model on anything that you want, and because you can't answer how like or how similar something is to a source material, that anything is fair game. Like if you look at an AI, it can't tell you if it was like 50% from this source. You just know that it is similar to that because as a person who follows this account, I know it, but other people don't.
Yeah, and there's a very similar parallel to the what we're doing right now, reaction content on other people's content, right?
That's true.
Basically, the rule for whether it's okay or not is, are we doing something transformative? And there's some guidelines as to what transformative means as far as reaction videos go and mixtapes go. And when it comes to being remixed by machines, we don't have any precedent. And I know a lot of coders and a lot of artists are very, very upset that their stuff has been scanned and transformed in this way. But whether or not it breaks their copyright actually is unclear. And I think that people who are very morally outraged about this maybe need to take a look at, beyond specific instances, like what it's actually doing under the hood, and it's trying to learn general principles. No one's trying to cut you out of the process, I think is the way I think about it. But all that aside, I think it's very relevant for people like Chris Coyier, who makes, for example, the definitive Flexbox guide on the internet.
Yeah.
Because now suddenly you don't need it.
Yeah,
suddenly
exactly.
In ChatGPT, I will always go to ChatGPT rather than consult his guide. So he sold CSS Tricks at the exact right time. I'm sure he didn't think about it at the time.
That's
but
true. No.
Yeah, he sold it at the time that it became less valuable.
Yeah, exactly. And I've wondered how, I think Google's hand was forced in how it's sort of approaching AI search and promoting it really widely now. Because there was a time that they even took down the built-in Google timer, because I used to use it all the time. I set up a Google search for 5 minutes and I just added that as a link. Yeah. If you go there, it does not give you a timer anymore. And I don't know why
that's atrocious.
Is. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I know. I thought it was, I don't know, that they don't want to aggregate as many things because they want click-through on certain websites. But for a timer?
Okay.
Are we competing with big timer?
No. If you type 5 minute, if you type 5 minute timer, it works. But if you type 5 minute countdown, it doesn't work.
Oh, maybe it's added back? Because I set this up as a Google link on like blog posts that I read where I can open a notes page and click a timer, but it just didn't populate. All right. Well, maybe that's not a good example. But I know that Google has had this problem where they can't compete with existing search results already on there, where people get frustrated if Google aggregated too much and didn't attribute a source properly, or if they, pushed ads to the top and other things. But now with, AI search, it's just giving you an answer from anywhere. and it can cite sources, kind of. I'm actually curious how it does cite sources, because that seems against the black box model. But yeah, it still feels like against some of the push and pull that Google has with existing AdSense and ad revenue people.
It is. It's very true. So yeah, Google's business model is threatened, and I fully agree that their hand kind of got forced by Microsoft, which is just a genius move by Microsoft, because suddenly
really
Bing is relevant.
that.
I'm using Bing every day, and that's not a sentence I would have said a year ago.
No.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
Anything else? Yeah, I feel like this is a common debate that people have to come to terms with. But also, this article about like diving into the source of ChatGPT, I put the link in the ping chat for Ben. It's from a Washington Post investigation into the C4 dataset, which is actually the least controversial dataset in all of AI. This is well known to be cleaned, less controversial than some. That's, for example, like the books data set, where some potentially copyrighted books were included in that data set, and that actually compromises the legal chain of defense for that data set. But C4 is completely kosher because it comes from Common Crawl, which is another nonprofit that scrapes the internet, and seems to be the strongest data set for training any large language model. So yeah, look into it, but it's not scandalous at all, not surprising at all. It just is.
Yeah, gotcha.
In fact, actually, the most interesting thing about the clean is that they maybe clean too much. So one of the people I had on my podcast, Jonathan Frankel from Mosaic, actually made this observation, which I didn't know about. So C4 stands for Colossal Cleaned Common Crawl, corpus of Common Crawl. And it was done by Google for their T5 paper. And they just wanted the internet without porn. Porn takes up a surprising percent of the internet. So how do you filter out porn, right? You basically develop this list of words that like correlate with porn, and you kind of put that in there. But sometimes you get what is called the Scunthorpe problem, which is, Scunthorpe is a place in the UK, right? It just happens to have the words CUNT in the name. If you have that in the filter, it's going to get filtered out. That's the Scunthorpe problem. And so one of the some of the biggest sites in the world that they wanted to filter are basically just just gay porn sites. So the word gay was filtered out of C4.
Oh boy. Oh yeah.
You can see how that's problematic.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I've
got no response to that apart from
no.
Huh?
I've dealt with that for usernames on Steam, for example. Because last name's Holmes, Sherlock Holmes. I think I call myself Cumberbatch. Benedict Cumberbatch was the actor on Sherlock, but Cumberbatch just does a ton of stars, and it actually crossed out the whole name. So it looks like, oh my God, Ben, what did you put? It's like, no, it's just a normal human name that I added. So yeah, it's I can only imagine it gets worse with AI training sets because it's the whole internet. You can't scrape that clean. You would have to curate the data set, and no one has time for that. Like a full curation of article by article, feeding it into a machine. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And this paywall right here is reminding me it's probably going to mean more paywalls for the internet as we deal with AI synthesizing things. Because I assume it can't grab a bunch of Washington Post articles. They're not going to be in many data sets unless explicitly added.
If you give it a different user agent header, if you pretend to be Googlebot, right, which you can do because you're a web developer, you know how to spoof your requests. It'll treat you like it does Google and show everything. So the simple way I do that is I have this little extension, Chrome extension for the Wayback Machine. And so I just click the Chrome extension and give me the first instance of this article on the Wayback Machine, and I can read the whole thing.
Oh boy. Yeah. Do we publish this advice? Is this legal advice? I'll try it.
It's fine. It's the Wayback Machine. I care about archiving the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, progressive web apps, transitional apps, all that stuff.